The session is being recorded. So last time when we met on the day of Friday, so on the day of Friday, we had taken some discussions. So initially I was talking to you about annotation based approach. In the annotation based approach, we were talking to you about the stereotype annotations. The stereotype annotations are responsible for creating and managing the Spring Bean such that both tasks are actually done by the container. If we are talking about at the rate component, at the rate repository, at the rate service, at the rate controller, then all these annotations are actually class level annotation. What is the mean of class level annotation? We have to apply these annotations at the class or with the name of the class. We cannot apply these annotations at the method level. One thing available that is called at the rate component, one thing available at the rate repository. See, at the rate component annotation is a general annotation. Whenever you are actually unclear about the role of a class or a class is not having a defined role, then in this condition, to create the object of this class and to get it managed by the Spring Bean container, in such condition, we have to use at the rate component annotation. The next is available at the rate repository, next is available at the rate service, and next is available that is called at the rate controller annotation. If I'm talking about at the rate bean annotation, this is a method level annotation. And bean creation is actually done by the programmer, but management of the bean actually will be done by the container. For example, let's say that there is an interface available. The name of the interface is called employee DAO. So by looking at this interface, can we say a very simple thing? That sir, this interface is responsible for dealing with the database. Yes or no? Can we say that this interface is responsible for dealing with the database? Because this is responsible for dealing with the database, so we know it very well that there is one annotation available. The name of the annotation is actually called the repository annotation. The repository annotation is a specific annotation for the DAO pattern, and at the rate service, this is specific annotation for the service. So this time you are having two choices. The first choice is available. You can use at the rate component annotation. There is no harm in that. But using at the rate repository annotation is beneficial because the at the rate repository annotation actually create plus manage Spring Bean that will be done by the container. But additionally, it is actually converting the SQL and JDBC exception to the Spring specific exception. So let's say that if you are using at the rate component annotation, then in case of at the rate component annotation, you will not be able to find out a specific Spring exception. You will ultimately end up with some core exceptions that you do not want it to handle actually in case of the Spring. So the difference is that at the rate repository annotation actually converts the SQL plus JDBC exception to Spring specific exception. So in future, if anybody is going to ask you, can you differentiate between at the rate component and at the rate repository annotation? Will you be able to tell the difference? Will you be able to tell the difference? Yes, it is. This is another very common question that is asked in the interview. Similarly, when we are talking about at the rate service, then use this annotation for class that actually contains the business logic. Use this annotation for class that actually contains the business logic. So for example, let's say whenever you are going to create a business logic, it will be in the service layer and nothing special. Controller, this is used to contain the request handling method. Then we were talking to you about the XML based approach. From the XML based approach, how you are going to migrate to the annotation based approach. Into the annotation based approach, you need to write down any XML file. You need to create the configuration class. How to create the configuration class? First of all, you have to annotate that class with at the rate configuration. Then if you wanted to enable the automatic object creation, then you have to use at the rate component annotation. Into the base packages, you have to specify a list of comma separated packages that will be scanned. Whatever class that is annotated with at the rate component or at the rate repository or any stereotype annotation, its object will be created automatically. You don't have to worry about the same. And if you wanted to instantiate the container, then definitely to instantiate the container, you have to write down new annotation config application context, then app config.class. So this is actually a brief revision that I have given you on whatever be the content that we have covered in the previous class. Now, actually, I am asking just a simple question. First of all, how was the evaluation? Rate the evaluation out of 5. 3 means average, 5 means very hard, 1 means very easy. How was the evaluation? Please rate out of 5. 1 is for very easy, 2 is for easy, 3 is for average, 4 is for hard, and 5 is for very hard. This is how actually you have to do. Okay. 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 So mainly the rating is all about around average. Mainly the rating is all around average. No problem. That's good. So shortly you will get the feedback recording also, as well as actually your grading will also be available to you possibly by Thursday. Possibly by Thursday. So okay. Now I'm going to start or heading toward the further topics that are actually pending. So if I'm talking about the further topics that are pending in the previous class, so in the previous class at the rate bin annotation was already done. Now we are going to have discussion about the next annotation, and the name of the next annotation is called at the rate value annotation. The name of the next annotation is actually called at the rate value annotation. What exactly at the rate value annotation is? First of all, if you remember, when using the auto wiring, actually we can provide value to the reference types only. We cannot provide value to the primitive data type. Did you remember this? Using the auto wiring, we can provide value to the reference variables, means we can provide value to the objects, but we cannot provide value to the primitive type. Is that point clear? Yes, it is. So now one question arises that, sir, if we cannot do this, then what is the solution? How exactly we can find out the provide the value to anything? How exactly we can provide the value to any primitive variable? So if you wanted to provide the value for any primitive variable, then to provide the value for any primitive variable, there is one annotation available. The name of the annotation is actually called at the rate value annotation. The at the rate value annotation is used to inject the simple value type variable. So like it will be good to take an example directly, and I'm coming to STS. After coming to STS, first of all, let me copy any example. So initially, let's say I'm copying this example, and this is going to be example number 16. This is going to be example number 16, and into the example number 16, I'm talking about value annotation. This is going to be example of value annotation. So example number 16 is created. Initially, I wanted to get the Maven dependencies resolved. So I'm pressing Alt F5, then updating this project. And when I'm updating this project, then you can see that Maven dependencies are about to be added. And now they are added. Now they are added. Application.xml, this is of no use right now because I'm going for the annotation based approach. So let me delete this file. And after deleting this file, then a lot of files are available that I'm not interested in. So I'm going to app.java. And after going to app.java, nothing special I'm doing. I will actually rewrite this line also. So first thing first, package name, I'm changing to, this is going to be example number 16. And into the example number 16, I am talking about this is value annotation. Into this value annotation package, one file is available. The name of the file is called app.java. Then there is one more file available, or actually I'm creating one more file. The name of the file I'm writing is, I wanted to create a class. The name of the class that I'm writing is class A. The name of the class that I'm writing is class A. In this class, I'm creating, let's say, one variable, and the variable that I'm creating is, let's say that I'm talking about private integer I. Thereafter, I'm talking about private string name. So these are the two variables that actually I have created. I wanted to enable, let's say that component scanning. And if I wanted to enable the component scanning, then definitely I'm writing here at the rate component. Then everyone, actually, because I wanted to provide the value here. So to provide the value, we need to write down here at the rate value. Into the at the rate value, I wanted to provide the value. So to the variable I'm providing the value that is 10. Again, I'm writing at the rate value. And here actually I'm providing the value. Let's say that the value I'm writing is Ram. Thereafter, everyone, I wanted to override the public string to string method. And while overriding the to string method, I am including both the fields. So simple. One class is created. The name of the class is called class A. At the rate component annotation is here. Why at the rate component annotation here? First of all, By looking at this file, is it reasonable to use @repository or @service or @controller annotation with that? Please tell me. Is it reasonable to use any specific annotation with this? Neither this is the repository, neither it is writing the business logic. It is simple a class available. So in such condition, you should always write down @component annotation because it is a general class. Now the next thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to create a configuration class. And to create a configuration class, I wanted to create again one more class. The name of the class that actually I am writing is going to be app_config class. Into the app_config class, the very first thing that actually, just a minute, it is scanning for class path. Let it be. Meanwhile, the next part that I wanted to do is I have to create a config class. For the config class, what annotation do I need to use? Please update on the chat. For the config class, what annotation do I need to use? Please tell me. @configuration. And I wanted to get the object of class A created automatically. Because I wanted to get the object of class A created automatically. So in such condition, which annotation do I need to use? Component scan. In the component scan, what is the name of the attribute? The name of the attribute is going to be base packages attribute. B in the small letter, P into the capital letter. And there I need to write down base packages equal to com dot my school com dot masai school dot whatever be my package name is. So again, I am writing here first annotation, that is @configuration annotation. And after writing @configuration annotation, then I am writing here one more thing. And this is what actually referred as the component scan. After writing the component scan, the name of the attribute is going to be base packages. Into the base packages, I'm going to write down name of the package, and the name of the package is actually going to be com.masaischool.b28 sb201 example number 16 value annotation. Nothing special I have to write down. No @bean is what I'm going to use. So if I'm talking about the app.java, into the app.java, can you tell me name of the class that I need to instantiate the container when I'm using annotation based approach? Can you tell me name of the class that I need to instantiate when I wanted to instantiate the Spring container using annotation based approach? It is actually annotation based. It is going to be annotation. Just a second. I even it's my also for annotation config application context. The name of the class is going to be annotation config application context. Thereafter, I am talking about the name of the class. The name of the class that I'm writing is going to be appconfig.class. And now context is there. So first of all, I have written code to, you can say that instantiate the container. This is the first part that I'm having. Second part is code to get the bean of the class, and code to get the bean of the class A. If I wanted to get bean of the class A, then using this context, will it be good to call the getBean method? Into the getBean method, first parameter I am passing is name of the bean, and the second parameter I am passing is the name of the class. I am assigning same to the local variable, and after assigning same to the local variable, then we are going to call the toString method. We are going to call the toString method. When I'm calling the toString method, thereafter I am writing small a. Alt Shift X J. So by looking at this output, can we verify that @value annotation is working? Can we verify that @value annotation is working? Yes, it is. So simple logic is that everyone, when we wanted to provide the value to the objects, then definitely auto wiring is there to support you. But using auto wiring, you can never provide the value to simple. You can never provide the value to, let's say that the primitive variable. If you wanted to provide the value to the primitive variable in the code, then you have to use @value annotation. First part is clear, everyone? How @value annotation is working? Yes, it is. But again, in this thing, later on, if you wanted to change the value of the variable, then you have to make changes in the code. And once you are making changing in the code, then again you have to recompile, then you have to again create the jar file, then you have to redeploy. Again, this is not a recommended approach. So it will be great if we can take value of the primitive variable from the properties file. Don't you think it will be a good choice? If we can take the value of variables from the properties file, then definitely it is going to be a good choice for us. So one example I have taken is when I'm using the simple value annotation. Second example I am going to use when I'm talking about the value annotation, and in the value annotation, I'm going to discuss about the next thing. And the next thing that actually I'm saying is with the help of properties file. This is going to be my example number 17. And into the example number 17, I'm going to discuss to you about the property file. So let me actually rename the package. This is going to be 17, and we are talking about properties properties file. And after talking about the properties file, then let's say a.java is available, app config is available, app.java is also available. Then here in this condition, everyone, within the resources, I'm going to create a file, and name of the file you can give any name. Let's say that the name of the file that I'm providing is going to be a1.properties file. Into the a1.properties file, let's say that I wanted to write down first value. So the first value that I'm writing is, let's say that I'm creating one variable. The name of the variable I'm writing is int value, and value for int value that I'm writing is 100. Thereafter, I'm talking about one more variable, str value. For the str value, let's say that value is 101. And here, for example, I am writing some name that is Sham. Two values I have written. Now I'm coming to the file a.java. Into the file a.java, last time we were getting all the values from the code itself. But because this time we wanted to get the value from the properties file. So how to get the value from the properties file? First of all, we have created a a1.properties file within the src/main/resources folder. Now, because I wanted to inject the value, so you can see that how is the way to write down this thing. Can you see that with the value annotation, the very first thing that I need to do is I have to write down the dollar symbol. After writing the dollar symbol, then I need to write down name of the variable. And if I'm talking about the name of the variable, then the name of the first variable is int value. Name of the first variable is going to be int value. Similarly, if I'm talking about the next case, then the next case, the value is going to be that is called the str value. The next thing that I'm writing is going to be the str value. These are the two things that actually I'm writing. Thereafter, everyone, remaining things we are actually not very much concerned about. Remaining things we are not very much concerned about. But actually, you can see that third part is available. You have to specify the source of the property file. To specify the source of the property file, we have to use @property source annotation, and this annotation we have to use along with the configuration class. So I'm going to appconfig.java. After going to appconfig.java, then I'm talking about the annotation, and the name of the annotation is called @property source annotation. Into the property source annotation, I have to write down name of the file, and the name of the file in this condition is going to be a1.properties. The name of the file that I'm writing is a1.properties. Thereafter, coming to app.java. Into the app.java, you can see that there is no need to make any changes. Possibly, as I made changes in 16 number. Cut. I have made changes in the file for 16 number. This file is okay. And going to app config. Into the app config, I have to use annotation here. Then actually, the good thing is that a.java is perfectly okay. This is perfect. Instantiate. Okay. Then doing the app config, alt shift x j. Exception in thread main, it is saying something. Let us study what exactly it is saying. It is saying that no such bean definition exception. So let me just once again check it again. So there is @component annotation applicable on this. Let me check the base packages. Into the app config.java, I have to check for the base packages, and base packages is wrong. This is package number 17. com.masai school, then yeah, this one. Now package name is okay. Let me try to run this program again. Alt Shift XB. So working everyone. I'm getting data from the properties file. Yes or no? Yes, it is. That's good. And here actually always keep one thing in mind. Let's say that your application is running, and once your application is running, and during the execution of your application, if you are making changes in the properties file, what do you think? Changes will be reflected immediately. Option number one, or option number two, I have to restart the application. What is your opinion? During the execution, let's say that I have made changes in the properties file. Option number one, the changes will be immediately affected on the project. Option number two, we have to restart the application. What is your opinion? The correct answer is opinion number two, because once initially when the application is starting, then it is reading all the values from the properties file. During the execution, if you are making changes in the properties file, then they are not applicable for the current execution. If you wanted to execute the code again, if you wanted to make these changes applicable, then you have to restart the application. Getting my point? There is no option other than to restart the application. Is that okay? This is not core Java. This is a framework, and in case of framework, always such kind of conditions are there. So keep in mind this point. Additionally, it will be good to write down that I am writing into the app.java file. It will be good to add this pointer here. So I'm adding that if you are making changes in the properties file, then actually you have to restart the application to view the changes, because start at the start all properties from the properties file is actually read by the container So for new properties oblique changes, it is mandatory to start application again. Is that okay, everyone? Is that point clear? So always keep this thing into your mind. This is something that actually you have to do. So let me actually write down in a plain text manner. So first point is done. Then I'm talking about the second part is also done. Going to the next part. Okay, the next case is available. What if you are having multiple properties file? If you are having multiple property file, then okay. One thing actually, I hope all of you remember. Did you remember at the rate attribute overrides annotation in the granularity mismatch Hibernate? Yes, it is. Similarly, did you remember at the rate named queries annotation in the Hibernate when JPQL statement was there for you? So there is a common pattern available. If you wanted to use only a single attribute, then you have to use at the rate attribute override. But if there are multiple attributes you wanted to override, then you have to surround them in at the rate attribute overrides annotation. Same story is there. If you wanted to specify a single property source, then to specify a single property source, the annotation is available that is called at the rate property source annotation. The annotation is available that is called at the rate property source annotation. If there are multiple properties are available, then in case of the multiple property, there is one thing available that is called at the rate property sources annotation. Is that point okay? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Perfect. So actually you have to use at the rate property sources. Into the at the rate property sources, you have to specify whatever be the property file that actually you are having. Is that clear? So multiple options are available. You can use property source also, or you can use at the rate property sources annotation also. So I'm saying here that you can actually read data from multiple properties files also. And how to do this thing? Then definitely at the rate property source, then you have to write down name of properties file. Name of properties file. Here also you have to write down, this is going to be name of the property file. This is something that actually you have to do. Then going to the next part, going to the next part. While going to the next part, then I'm talking about the next portion. Into the next portion, so there is one important object available. That object is called environment object. And let me actually do one very simple job. It will be good to directly go to internet. And here I'm writing, let's say that I'm talking about environment interface in Spring. This is available in Spring also, as well as this is available in Spring Boot also. And this is something that is actually very, very useful. This is something that is actually very, very useful. So let me come here. First of all, I'm going to discuss with you about the environment interface. See, take a look at parent interface of environment interface. If I'm talking about the parent interface, then the name of the parent interface is called property resolver. So simple question. Do I have any parent of this property resolver interface? Do I have any parent interface of this property resolver? Answer is no. So if I'm talking about the property resolver interface first, if I'm talking about the property resolver interface first, then in case of the property resolver interface, you can see that this is actually containing an interface for resolving properties against any underlying sources. So can I say the environment will be able to read the data from the property files directly? Yes or no? Because it is actually inheriting an interface such that the interface is actually responsible for resolving properties against any underlying source. This time, if I'm talking about the underlying source, then definitely the underlying source is going to be simple properties file. Then can you see that there are multiple methods available? Like one of the method is available contains key method that is used to check whether a certain key is available or not. Then the next is available get properties method. Using the key, you are going to get the value such that this time you can see that key is also going to be of the string type. And if we are talking about the return value, then the return value is also going to be of the string type. Second thing, if you wanted to directly convert the same thing into a target object, then you can. If you wanted to specify a default value, then you can. So multiple methods are available, but if I'm talking about the useful methods of this interface, then one of the useful method of this interface is going to be contains property method, and the another method that available is going to be get property method. You can see that there is one annotation available that is called @nullable annotation, and @nullable annotation actually directly give you an indication that the return value can be null. Return value can be null. This is what warning kind of actually it is giving to you. So these are the two methods that are useful for you. If I'm talking about the environment interface, if I'm talking about the environment interface, then in case of the environment interface, I'm going to tell you one thing, that interface representing the environment in which the current application is running. It models two aspects of the application, that is profiles and properties. Method related to property access are exposed via the property resolver super interface. Via the property interface. So just actually one point, it is interface that representing the environment in which the current application is running. It model two aspects of the application environment, that is profile and properties. Then method related to property access are exposed via the property resolver super interface. Then going to next part. Properties play an important role in all the applications and may originate from variety of sources: properties file, JVM, system properties, system environment variables, JNDI, servlet context parameter, ad hoc property, object maps, and so on. The role of environment object with relation to properties is to provide the user with a convenient service interface for configuring property source and resolving properties from them. So don't you think that the last time when we were actually reading the properties directly using @value annotation, this is definitely acceptable solution. But if we are talking about using the environment, then using the environment is definitely going to be a convenient solution than the @value annotation. Next thing, being managed within the application container may register to be environment aware or inject. This is not part of your case. In most cases, application level bean should not need to interact with environment directly, but instead may request it to have $property value replaced by property placeholder configuration. Configuring the environment object must be done through configurable environment. This is again not in your scope. This is again not in your scope. And if I'm talking about profiles, no, I think whatever method that I discussed to you that are already sufficient. Whatever method I have discussed to you, they are more than sufficient. Now please take a look at this example. Can you see there is file available? The name of the file is called a.java. Into the a.java, initially there is package com.masai. Import statements are there. One class A is available, and we are talking about the auto wiring. Because we are talking about the auto wiring, so in this condition, can I say you one thing? That this time object of implementing class of environment interface will be provided by the Spring container itself. Yes or no? This time, can I say that the object of class that implements environment interface, it will be automatically injected by the Spring container? I am not going to create this. So if I'm talking about the classes that are actually providing this, then can you see that there is one class available called abstract environment? One class is available that is called standard environment. If I'm talking about the abstract environment, then the subclass is available. The name of the subclass is going to be standard environment. For the non-web application, this is going to be normal standard environment. Using this normal standard environment, you can access n number of properties. You can access a number of properties. So let me take an example of the same. This time I am talking about the environment object, and using the environment object, we will talk about reading the properties. We will talk about assigning the properties. So just actually let me again copy this example and control C, control V. This is going to be, let's say that I'm talking about environment, and into the environment, I'm talking about 1818. Thereafter going to environment, then going to F2, and into the F2 again I'm talking about 1818, then talking about environment. Okay, hitting enter. Thereafter clicking on the continue. After clicking on the continue, then I'm talking about a.java. Into the a.java, first of all, let me take the event dependencies, alt F5, and after alt F5 talking about the force update, then clicking on OK. So right now dependencies are available, and this time I have removed value annotation from both. I have removed value annotation from both. Then I'm talking about one variable. The name of the variable that I'm writing is private environment. And then I'm talking about this is again environment. This is what exactly I'm writing. Alt Shift S, I wanted to generate the constructor from the superclass. And when I'm generating the constructor from the superclass, then can you see that private A, super A is available there and here? Simple logic. First of all, I wanted to perform the auto wiring. I wanted to perform the auto wiring. Okay. In case of @auto wire annotation, can you tell me what will be the default strategy? Can you tell me what will be the default strategy to resolve the auto wiring dependency? In case of annotation based approach, the default strategy is going to be by name. In case of annotation based approach, the default strategy is going to be by name. In case of XML configuration, the default value is no. In case of XML configuration, the default value is going to be no. Getting my point? In case of XML, the auto wire is having default value no. In case of annotation, when you have written @auto wire by yourself, then is it logical to say that the by default auto wire strategy is no? You have written the annotation by yourself means you need auto wiring. If you need auto wiring, then how you can say that default it will be auto wire equal to no? If you do not need auto wiring, do not write down auto wired annotation. So default strategy is going to be by name. Let's say that if a Spring container is not able to resolve the dependency by name, in this condition, what it will do? Definitely, it will go for by type. Definitely, it will actually go for by type. Getting my point? And still, if the dependency is not available, then you will ultimately end up with the exception. The exception is going to be no been found exception. This is what exception you are going to get. So first of all, we are doing the auto wiring. If you wanted to see the name of the class, then to see the name of the class, can we call this method? Can we call this method to get the name of the class whose object is getting injected? So I am writing that the environment object is of plus something class. Is that okay? After writing this part, because I wanted to access the properties, so to access the property, you can see that there is a method available called the get property method. Into the get property method, the first thing I am writing is going to be int value. The next property that I'm writing is going to be str value. Okay, what is the return type of get property method? What is the return type of get property method? It is going to be string. So definitely I cannot assign the same value to variable I directly. If I wanted to assign, then definitely I have to do the typecasting. And to perform the typecasting, did you remember wrapper classes? Into the wrapper classes directly there is value of method available. Yes or no? Everyone, did you remember this method? Core Java, J111 batch, auto wiring, somewhat day number 10, 11. Yes. So let us try this example. This time actually I have not used @value annotation, but to read the data from the properties file directly, I am talking about simple auto wire annotation. Thereafter, I am talking about auto wire annotation. Then I am talking about the appconfig.java. This time actually, let's say that, for example, let me run this application again, where I have made changes 18 number. Let me close the other files. Otherwise, by mistake, possibly, I can perform the changes in other files also. By mistake it can be possible. So first of all, @edit, that's perfect. There is no problem in this class. And if I'm talking about app.java, into the app.java, no need to perform any changes. Into the app config, right now I'm not performing any changes. So into the app config base packages, I have to perform the changes here. So let me write down here. This is going to be B28 SB201 example number 18. So let me run this Alt Shift XJ. Some exception is there. So the name of the bean is actually what it is getting problem into. It says that constructing new object, it throws the exception. So it is showing null pointer exception in case of get class method. In case of this dot environment is null. Okay. Not able to instantiate the environment. It is not able to instantiate the environment. So we are writing here auto wiring here. Into the auto wiring, we are writing here @environment. And when I'm talking about auto wire, I am writing here @environment. Just a minute, what went wrong? It is showing exception occurred during initialization. So it says that bean creation exception, error creating bean with the name in the file, definitely failed to instantiate. Constructor throw exception. Okay. So what actually it is doing, then org.framework spring bean, instantiate bean, create bean, do create bean, then get singleton, do get bean, Pre-instantiation finish, refresh, cancelling attempt, and app.min line number 9. The root cause is going to be fail to instantiate. Environment constructor throw exception, and the exception is going to be underlying. There is going to be null pointer exception. Just a minute. It says that org instantiate class, thereafter simple instantiate line number 87, thereafter instantiate bean exception, thereafter null pointer exception, cannot invoke object get class, this dot environment is null. Okay, just a minute. Fail to instantiate environment. So I have provided the auto wiring also, there is no problem. So why exactly this exception is occurring here? Why it is actually not able to initialize the environment? Why it is not able to initialize the environment? So Spring container, thereafter, no, but the solution is not actually working properly. Just a second. We are using the default constructor, and let me do one job. Actually, initially it is doing auto wiring. In case of when it is doing the auto wiring, so we are using the default constructor, and let me do one job. Actually, I'm writing, let's say the name of the method I'm writing is set method, and into the set method we are assigning the value. Thereafter I'm going to app.java, and into the app.java I'm calling about the a.set method. Thereafter let me run this application again, and this time it is working. So this is what actually we have done. The environment object is of standard environment class, and we are getting the value of variable I also, we are getting the value of variable name also. So far everyone, we have come across multiple ways to actually read the content. And just a minute, we come across multiple ways to read the content of the properties file. Initially, if I'm talking about the very first way, then definitely the very first way is all about reading the content using @value annotation. Okay, sorry, again restarting. First thing that actually I have done is, well everyone, you people are able to see me? I'm not able to find out my own thumbnail. I'm not able to find out my own thumbnail. Here I am. Still not able to see. It's okay. If you people are able to see, then well and good. If you people are able to see, then well and good. I'm not able to find out my own thumbnail. Okay. So well, initially I was talking to you about assigning the value to the instance variables such that the instance variable are of primitive type. If I'm talking about the instance variables of the primitive type, in this condition, one thing that actually I'm going to do is the very first approach that actually we come across is the very first approach that actually we come across is, you can see there is one thing available, a.java. In this condition, if you wanted to provide the value to a variable, then to provide the value to a primitive variable, we can use @value annotation. This is what my first point is. When you are using @value annotation, then you have to provide the value within the double quotation. That value will be automatically converted into the corresponding data type by the Spring container. You do not have to take care for the same. First point is clear, everyone? You do not have to take care for the same. Automatically Spring container will do the conversion. You can assign any type of value. But when you are assigning the value using @value annotation such that your values are hard coded, in this condition, ultimately you will find yourself in trouble. Because first of all, the value that you are assigning is a kind of constant value. In future, if you wanted to make changes in the value, then definitely you have to make changes in the code. That is going to be a tedious practice. So ultimately, can I say this is again going to be a case of tight coupling? In future, whenever you wanted to make changes, again, you have to make changes in the code. So can I say this is going to be a case of again tight coupling, but in case of primitive values? So what is the solution available? The available solution is, instead of actually hard coding the value into the code, we should get the value from the properties file. How to get the values from the property file? If you wanted to get the value from the property file, then to get the value from the property file, we have a file that is called a.java. Into the a.java, we have used @component annotation, and into @value annotation, I have specified name of the key that I have mentioned in the properties file. Like you can see that initially we have created a file. The name of the file is actually referred as a1.properties file. Into the a1.properties file, we are talking about the int value, and the value is 101. The next thing we are going to write down is str value, then the value is going to be sham. Two variables or two keys I have defined in the properties file. The first key is going to be simple int value, and the second key is going to be str value. How exactly you will tell the Spring container where exactly your values are available? To tell the Spring container where your values are available, with the app config, you have to use one annotation. The name of the annotation is going to be @property source annotation. Into the @property source annotation, you have to specify name of the file that is going to be work as source of information for you. So can you see when we are using @configuration annotation? So first of all, object of this class is going to be created. When object of this class is going to be created, then component scanning will start. Apart from starting the component scanning, properties file will also be loaded into the environment. Means your Spring container will load all the data from the property file at this stage. Yes or no? The Spring container environment will read the property file here, and that's why, because actually the Spring container is reading all the properties file here, so it is not allowed you to change the value during the execution, because once the property file is read, means it is read. During this execution, updated values will not be read again. That is the reason that you have to start the container again. Point is clear, everyone? This point is clear. Why do we have to restart the container whenever we are making changes in the properties file? Hopefully yes. And then once the properties are loaded, then actually you can see that into the file a.java, just actually we have to use dollar and curly braces. Using the dollar and the curly braces, we have to mention the value of the property. We have to mention the keys of the property file from which value is to be read. This time actually you can see that, sir, everything is perfectly, there is no problem. We are actually creating the loose coupling also. In future, if you wanted to change the value, then definitely you can change the value by making changes in the property file only. No need to recompile. Just actually restart the application and we are done. But we can have a better control also. How to get the better control? To get the better control, we have to use the object of environment. And if I'm talking about the object of the environment, then in case of the object of the environment, You can see that there is one file available, that is class A. In the class A, we are talking about environment. What exactly the mean of the environment is? First thing, the environment is derived from the property resolver interface. The property resolver interface is responsible for resolving all the properties. Thereafter, Boolean contain properties. Into the Boolean contain property, we have to specify the key. If you wanted to get the property, then you can get the property also. Then everyone, environment interface. It is representing the environment in which current application is running. It model two key aspects. One of the key aspect is going to be profile. Second is going to be properties. Then the third thing is going to be method related to property XSR exposed to the property resolver super interface. Then everyone, next thing is available. That is the role of the environment object in relation to the property file is to provide the user with a convenient service interface for configuring property sources and resolving properties from them. So this time what actually we have done? First of all, we have created a class A. Into the class A, integer I is there, string name is there, at the rate autowire annotation I have used, and then I am talking about the environment. Okay. Then actually one method is available, set method. Into the set method, initially when I was talking to you about name of the class whose object is created, then the object is created of standard environment class. Then using the integer.value of, we are converting the int value, then we are converting the name value. So using at the rate override annotation, we are getting that to string. Is that point okay, everyone? How exactly we are getting the most flexibility using environment? Because now you are having access to the variable, and once access to the variable are available to you, then you can do any operation whatever you wanted to do. If you wanted to two different values, you wanted to add two different value, then assign them to a variable, then you can do that also. Overall arithmetic logical operation is what you can do with the help of environment object. And this is again commonly asked question, what is the meaning of environment in Spring? Very commonly asked question it is. Because in future, when you are going for the slightly self-learning mode, then you will come across one more concept that is called Spring profiling. In case of Spring profiling, this actually play a key role. So this is again one important thing that actually you and we should take care. Then going to next part. So all the content of Spring annotation based approaches covered 100%. So let me just actually go through a quick round. And into the quick round, I'm going to have a discussion about this part. Spring using annotation. So using annotation, we can provide the metadata to the class. Annotation based approach, Spring core module. Stereotype is done. All for annotation done. Service controller is done. Auto scanning is done. Thereafter, if I'm talking about auto wiring, at the rate auto wired is done, at the rate qualifier is done. Okay, everyone, can you tell me what is the difference between qualifier and primary annotation is? Write on the chat, please. What is the difference between qualifier and at the rate primary annotation is? Hurry up, please write. Primary is working on by type strategy, but qualifier is working on by name strategy. Is that okay? Primary is working on by type strategy and qualifier is working on by name strategy. Is that point okay? Keep this thing in your mind. Keep this thing into your mind. Thereafter, we have done with the next further annotations. So auto wiring is done. Auto wire required equal to false is done. By name, by type is done. And actually null value is also done. After having a null value, then we had discussion about the next part, that is all about the scope annotation, already done. Post construct pre destroy, already taken example. Then configuration annotation, thereafter component scan annotation. Thereafter we were talking about u problem at the rate bean annotation, and after the at the rate bean annotation, at the rate value annotation is there. Then finally we are having, you can see that the next annotation. day number 1 when I discussed to you about the web architecture. When I discussed to you about the web architecture. Just a minute. My voice is fluctuating. Hello. I have actually connected again, Wi-Fi, not Zoom meeting. So once actually everyone do let me know. This is a test statement. Now audio video signals are okay. Now audio signals are okay. That's good. Okay. The last question that actually I was discussing with you is what is the difference between @primary annotation and qualifier annotation? This is what question I was discussing with you. If I'm talking about qualifier annotation, so qualifier annotation is used when you wanted to resolve the dependency by name. But primary annotation is used when you wanted to resolve the dependency by type. Clear? Primary is for by type, qualifier is for by name. Qualifier is for by name. This is what actually you have to do. Then everyone talking about the next portion. Into the next portion, I was talking to you that what topics we have covered. So after @primary qualifier, then @value annotation was there, and reading value from the property file was also there. So this is the both thing that actually we have done. Then everyone on the day 1. Now again, I'm coming back to the day 1, and related to day 1, I'm going to discuss some content with you. Did you remember on the day number 1 when we were talking to you about the internet? And for the internet, I was telling you that internet is nothing but it is a network of networks. It was created by Windsurf in the 1984. In approximately 1987, internet was available for public. www or the World Wide Web is one of the service that is running on the internet, and definitely this is one of the most widely used service on the internet. So often the people are actually misinterpreting that internet and www both are the same things, which is actually not the case. Which is actually not the case. Thereafter, everybody, you can see that father of www is Tim Berners-Lee. But then to identify the resource of the internet, we are talking about the URL. The URL actually refer to the uniform resource locator. The format of the URL is going to be protocol, subdomain, domain name, top level domain, and then the path of the resource. One example completely we have taken top level domain is something that actually we have done. Domain name is done, subdomain is done, protocol is done. Then I was discussing to you about this diagram. Initially, I talked to you one thing that let's say we are having a client, and client in our case is going to be a web browser. From the web browser, whenever you wanted to request a resource from the internet, then definitely you need to take help of URL. Whenever into the address bar, you are typing any URL, and after typing the URL, whenever you are hitting the enter, then definitely, first of all, we are getting HTTP request object. The HTTP request object will be forwarded to the server. If it is a static application, then whatever be the pages are available, they will be provided in the terms of response as it is to the web browser. So definitely, because the web browser understands HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, so we can expect all the pages available on the server should be in the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript only. But then we come across that actually creating the static pages is not a good choice because they are very much difficult to update, which is one of the primary demand. So we were talking about the concept of dynamic pages. While having the discussion of the dynamic pages, I told you that a dynamic page is one in which content is not directly written, but content is actually coming from some third-party resource, or content is actually coming after some processing. So if I'm talking about the content that is coming after some processing, so can you see one thing, whatever be the PHP code is available, it will be provided to the CGI system. Then CGI system will provide the SQL to the database. From the SQL, we will get the array and object. Then array and object will be converted to the text. Ultimately, your response is going to be HTML plus CSS plus JavaScript. Yes or no? Ultimately, your response is going to be HTML plus CSS plus JavaScript. Is that okay? Yes, it is. So dynamic pages are there. Dynamic pages are there. One complete example initially I taken to you, and I talked to you about the application server and the web server also. Around this diagram, now remaining theoretical discussion will revolve. Around this diagram, now remaining theoretical discussion will revolve. If I'm talking about this diagram, then in this diagram, actually, you can see that I am talking about one machine that is called application server, and that application server is actually managing everything inside that. But just assume one thing. If I'm talking about the large application very much like if I'm talking about Google, Gmail, Amazon, then do you think that only a single server will be able to manage them? Do you think that only a single server will be able to manage them? Can you imagine a single machine that can host entire Google? Can you imagine a single machine that can maintain entire Google? Definitely practical, it is impossible kind of things to have such machine. And it is not advisable also. So can I say that if we are talking about the google.com, then definitely google.com is actually managed by some handsome quantity of servers such that the servers are actually available at the different locations? Answer is yes. Similarly, if we are talking about the ATM of banks, they are also an example of the distributed system. Answer is yes, because in the banking system, you can find out a lot of servers are available there. A lot of servers are actually available there. So thing is that everyone, when we are talking about the distributed system, so in case of distributed system, can we say that our application is not going to be hosted on a single machine, but our application will be hosted on multiple different machines? Yes or no? Can we say that our application will be hosted on multiple different machines? And definitely when your application is hosted on the multiple different machines, so actually there will be more layers in your application. As you can see that if I'm talking about the normal Java Enterprise Edition application, then for the Java Enterprise Edition application, the client tier components run on the client machine. So if I'm talking about the client machine, then in the terms of client machine, can I say that I'm talking about the web browser? In case of client machine, can I say that I'm talking about the web browser? Yes or no? Simple logic. So if I'm talking about simple concept that is called the client tier component that is running on the client machine, then there is one thing available that is called the web client. A web client is actually containing of two parts. The first part, dynamic web page containing various types of markup languages, which are generated by web component running on the web tier. Second, a web browser which actually return the page received from the server. A web client is also referred as the thin client. Thin client usually do not query database, execute complex business logic, or connect to legacy application. When you use a thin client, such as heavyweight operations are offloaded to Enterprise Bean executing on the Java Enterprise Edition server, where they can leverage the security, speed, services, and reliability of the Enterprise Edition server-side technologies. First part, so web browser, already discussed in the same diagram. And this diagram, everyone, your web browser, is it responsible for processing the PHP or Java? Simple answer, yes or no. Is your web browser responsible for processing PHP or Java? Or your actually application server is responsible for processing PHP or Java? Statement 1 is true, statement 2 is true. Statement 1, your web browser is responsible for processing Java PHP. Statement number 2, your application server is responsible for processing Java PHP and database related queries. Definitely option number 2. Definitely option number 2. Can I say that the web browser is actually responsible only for processing plain HTML, CSS, and JavaScript pages? So it is not involved in querying any database related operation. It is not involved in querying anything else. So the simple logic that actually I can say in this condition is going to be the simple condition that I'm going to create in this condition is going to be that. One second, everyone, monkey is in the balcony. Sorry for the interruption. So this time, everyone, if I'm talking about web browser, and please take a look at the definitions. The definition is that actually a web client is sometimes called the thin client. Thin clients usually do not query database, execute complex business rules, or connect to legacy application. When you use a thin client, such heavyweight operations are offloaded to Enterprise Bean, executing on Java Enterprise Edition server, where they can leverage the security, speed, services, and reliability of Java Enterprise Edition server-side technologies. Is that point okay? Yes. Then the next part is available. The next part is again all about the application client. An application client run on the client machine and provide a way for user to handle tasks that require richer user interface than can be provided by markup language. An application client typically uses graphical user interface created from the Swing or abstract window toolkit, but the command line interface is certainly possible. See, if I'm talking about the example of the application client, so have you used desktop application of Spotify? Have you used desktop application of WhatsApp? Have you used desktop application of Zoom? Yes, it is. So when you are using desktop application of the Zoom, then definitely I cannot call it a web client. Yes or no? I cannot call it a web client. In this time, I have to call it an application client. I have to call it an application client. So application client directly access enterprise beans running in the business tier. However, if application requirement warranted, an application client can open HTTP connection to establish communication with the servlet running the web tier. Application client written in language other than the Java can interact with Java Enterprise Edition server, enabling the Java Enterprise platform to interoperate with the legacy system, client and non-Java language. Take a look at this diagram. Hello. I think it will take unusually longer. Sometime it happen. Sometime it happen. Okay. So if I'm talking about the client tier, then in the client tier, we are having web browser. Apart from the web browser, we are having application clients. Then talking about the next component is going to be the web component. In case of web component, the Java Enterprise Edition web components are either servlet or web pages created using JSF technology or JSP technology. Servlet are the Java programming language classes that dynamically process the request and construct the response. About this also we had a discussion. About this also we had discussion. I think I already told you that JSP, PHP, JSP, JSP, so Jakarta, EJB, yeah. In 1999, see, servlet technology was developed by Sun Microsystem to create dynamic web pages using Java. And servlet is all about HTML in Java and complex to write down. The better technology was available JSP in year 2000. JSP developed by Sun Microsystem to create the dynamic web page using Java. JSP is all about Java in HTML easier to write. So initially, if I'm talking about creation of the dynamic pages, then the creation of the dynamic pages was either with the help of servlet or with the help of JSP. Static HTML pages and applets are bundled with web component during application assembly, but not considered. Well, this is not actually very much important. This is not actually a very much important, but take a look at the definition of a web component. Take a definition of the web component. A web component is nothing more than a software component that services an incoming HTTP request and provide some kind of response. Take a look again. A web component is nothing more than a software component that actually services an incoming HTTP request and provides some kind of valid responses. So this time, everyone, can I say that in this example, can I say this portion is termed as a web component? Yes or no? It is accepting a HTTP request and it is providing a HTTP response. The HTTP response can be a valid response or HTTP response can be an error. Yes, it can be. Overall, the same diagram. Okay. Now let me discuss you something interesting. The something interesting point that actually I'm going to discuss with you is, see, simple point and the simplest logic. Simple point and the simplest logic that I was discussing with you, everyone. Simple point. In this diagram, can you see that if I'm talking about the web client, then the web client is going to be web browser only? Yes or no? Simple one. If I'm talking about website of masaischool.com, so if I'm talking about the website of masaischool.com, then can I say a simple thing to you that sir, masaischool.com is a kind of B2C application. B2C means business to consumer application. Yes or no? What is the mean of business to consumer? That it is actually providing services to the consumer directly. It is not providing services to any other business, but it is providing services to the consumer directly. So when I'm taking example of, let's say that www.masaischool.com. So this is going to be an example of B2C application. What is the meaning of B2C application? The B2C application means business to consumer application. In the business to consumer application, we are actually directly providing services to the user. We are directly providing services to the user. Okay, let me take the next case. If I'm talking about the next case, into the next case, for example, let's say that I'm talking about the hotel booking website, and you might have listened about this website, very famous, that is Trivago. Into the Trivago, if you actually directly go to trivago.com, then in case of trivago.com, can you see that directly there are options available to compare the prices from multiple websites? There are options available to compare the prices from multiple websites. When there are options available to compare the prices for multiple websites, then actually one question arises that, sir, Make My Trip. Let's say that it is taking information from the Make My Trip. If I'm talking about the Make My Trip, then the Make My Trip is nothing special. It is actually a kind of B2C platform, because directly we can provide the information from the same. Yes or no? Directly we can take information from the same. Yes or no? Yes, it is. But here actually it is fetching information from Make My Trip. So what do you think? Make My Trip is directly providing access to its database. Is that? What do you think? Make My Trip is providing access to its database to trivago.com. Is that possible? Definitely not. Definitely not. Similarly, everyone, if you are going to any other website, if I'm talking about any other website, so for example, let's say even if you are going to zomato.com, then in case of zomato.com, Zomato is also actually taking data from different restaurants. When it is actually taking data from different restaurants, so what do you think? Is it going to, is any restaurant directly going to provide information from the database? Means, can you imagine that Zomato is having access to 1000 websites database or 10,000 websites database? Is it possible? Definitely not possible. So this time, everyone, if I'm talking about applications that are providing services to the consumer directly, Make My Trip, definitely Make My Trip is a B2C application. But if I'm talking about the example that we have recently seen on the trivago.com, can I say that Make My Trip is providing its services to other business also? Yes or no? Can I say that Make My Trip is providing the services to the other business also? So for example, let's say I'm talking about the hotel booking, that is trivago.com. So trivago.com is something that you can see. Or if I'm talking about the example of makemytrip.com, so Make My Trip is going to be a B2C application. And apart from the B2C application, it is actually going to be a B2B application also. What is the mean of B2B application? It is going to be business to business application. Means it is providing information to the other businesses also rather than the direct client. It is providing information to the other business also rather than the direct client. Is that point clear? So now just actually assume one situation. If I'm talking about the content of the day one, then in this condition, when we are talking about content of day one, when the response is directly provided to the web browser, so don't you think this time actually providing the response in the form of HTML, CSS and JavaScript, this is definitely good when we are talking about the B2C application. This is definitely good when we are talking about the B2C application. But if I'm talking about the B2B application, then in case of B2B application, do you think that the client is expecting responses in the form of HTML, CSS? Definitely not. Definitely not. Nobody want actually response in the form of HTML and CSS, because if I'm talking about this format, right now you can see that this is available in the green background color on simple, that is trivago.com. If I'm talking about the any other website, for example, let's say that I'm talking about the website, the name of the website is booking.com. In case of the booking.com, if you are going to fetch the information, then definitely it might be possible that it can fetch the information from Make My Trip also. It is going to find out the information from the You can say that goibb.com, etc., etc. Similarly, if I'm talking about the flight booking applications, in case of flight booking application, let's say that I'm talking about the flight. For example, let's say I'm talking about the website is from Delhi to Bangalore flight. Let's say that I'm talking about that thing. When I'm talking about the flight, then can you see that all the data is available here? Can you see that all the data is available here? And if I'm talking about all the data that is available here, so is that data of google.com, or google.com has taken the data from several websites? Option 1 or option 2? Is that data prepared by google.com, or this data is taken by Google from some other websites? Okay. So this time from all the three examples, can I say that this time I am talking about communication between website to website apart from website to consumer? Yes or no? Yes, it is. That's good. When we are talking about communication between website to consumer, then for the communication between website to consumer, we are expecting that response should be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Why response should be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Because we are clear that this time the recipient is human. Yes or no? For B2C application, the response will be available in the form of, so it will be good to write down for B2C application. You can see that the information, or it will be good to use the word response. The response should be provided in the form of HTML, CSS, JS, because the information will be actually consumed by the human. But if I'm talking about the next case, when I'm talking about the B2B application, then in case of the B2B application, the response should be provided in the form of fill in the blank, because the information will be consumed by the machines. Yes or no? This time, the information will be provided to the machines, or you can say that other application. When you are providing information to the other application, then this time there are two popular formats are available. One of the popular format is called XML, and one more popular format is referred as the JSON. Nowadays, if I'm talking about the popular format, then the popular format is going to be JSON. That is actually referred as JavaScript Object Notation. Full form of JSON is JavaScript Object Notation. XML is something that you all know it very well. That XML is something that is actually referred as Extensible Markup Language. If I'm talking about the JSON, then the JSON is actually referred as JavaScript Object Notation. This is referred as JavaScript Object Notation. So these are the forms available. So this time, everyone, in case of B2B application, do you find that this diagram is suitable? In case of B2B application, do you find that this diagram is suitable? Definitely answer is no. This diagram is something that is not suitable. But actually the good thing is that this diagram is suitable with some modification. This diagram is suitable actually with some modification. How this diagram is suitable with some modification? Actually, everybody, here what you are doing, your servlet container is actually converting your response into the text. The text is getting integrated into the HTML, and thereafter you are getting the response in the form of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This is what actually you are getting. But now actually you have to do some minor changes. And after doing some minor changes, see, ultimately, if you wanted to provide the response in the form of JSON, still actually the data is going to be come from database. Yes or no? Still the data is going to be come from database. Ultimately, the data will definitely come from database no matter where you are. Okay. It is actually getting converted into the array and object. Then your programming language is actually responsible for converting the same response to the text. So I am saying your programming language is actually capable enough to convert the same thing. Your programming language is actually capable enough to convert the same thing to the another type of response, and this another type of response is actually referred as the JSON response. This another type of response is actually referred as the JSON response. And let's say that initially if a JSON response is actually produced by any system, then can I say that any B2B application, or if I'm talking about, let's say that any, you can say that any other application will actually consume the data in the form of JSON. and it will also provide the data in the form of JSON. So can I say that I have to do almost the same processing, but the only difference that I need to do is that instead of generating the response, instead of generating the response in the form of text, this time the response will be generated in the form of JSON object. So can I say that the remaining processing will be as it is? Yes or no? Can I say everyone that remaining processing will be as it is? Is that okay? Yes. Always keep in mind when I'm talking about the era of some 2010 or before, then in the era of 2010 or before, normally people used to find out only B2C applications. Then actually comes the era of startup, and in the era of startup, Paytm was available. Apart from that, you can say that Snapchat was available. Many different applications were available, and they come across the concept. They says that the consumer is actually moving from one website to another website to the third website to the fourth website. He is doing all the comparison, then he is buying the product. This is something that is actually very much time consuming. To increase the competition in the market and definitely to provide the best rates to the customer, multiple applications comes with the concept that we will host all the prices, or we will display you prices from multiple different hosts on a single platform. When they are available on a single platform, then definitely you can compare easily, you can buy very easily. But at the time, what was the challenge? The challenge is that mostly applications were actually the B2C application. What is the mean of B2C application? They are providing response in the terms of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And when they are providing the information in the form of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, then in such condition, you can understand it very easily that sir, this system is not feasible for such kind of application. Then actually it was continued constantly. People were looking for a way to fetch the information very easily. And here actually comes the concept of next very popular term. And this next very popular term is what actually referred as the web service. The next term is what actually referred as the web service. And if I'm talking about web service, what exactly the mean of a web service is? So just try to understand. Just try to understand what is the mean of a web service is. Just a second, actually, yeah. So a web service is nothing but it just actually allow one application to communicate with the another application. Simple language that you can remember is a web service is one that actually allow one system to communicate with the another system. So see day number 11, what is web service? What is web service? A web service can be defined by following ways. First, it is a client service application or application component for communication. The method of communication between two devices over the network. Second, it is a software system for the interoperable machine-to-machine communication. Is the third line okay, everyone? Is that third line okay? This time we are not talking about machine-to-human communication. This time we are talking about machine-to-machine communication. This time we are talking about machine-to-machine communication. So simple, what is web service? A web service is actually providing these following ways. So point is there, web service. A web service can be defined in the following ways. First, it is a client server application or client component or application component for communication. Second is this method of communication between the two devices over the network. Third, it is a software system for the interoperable machine-to-machine communication. Fourth, it is collection of standard protocol for exchanging the information between the two devices or application. Now consider one more scenario. For example, let's say that if I'm talking about say example of Trivago. The Trivago is, let's say, taking the information from that services. Let's say, if I'm talking about the next case, let's say that for the Make My Trip, the information is actually coming from the website, and the website is, let's say, written in Java. And underlying database is going to be, let's say, MySQL. Let me take a very simple example. The simple example is, let's say that I'm talking about one website that is Make My Trip, and the Make My Trip is something that is actually keeping all the data using the Java and MySQL. Let's say that I'm talking about the next thing, that is Go IBBO, and the Go IBBO application says that our system is, let's say, available into the Python, and as a database we are using, let's say, that the Oracle database. Third, some more website is available. Let's say that this third some more website is, let's say I'm talking about the bookings.com. The bookings.com says that we are going to maintain the information using the, you can say that Node.js is what actually our programming language is. And definitely on the server side, we are talking about the MongoDB also. So this time, everybody, can I tell you one thing, that we are talking about communication among the three different systems, and I wanted to get information from all the three systems into a common platform. And let's say that this common platform is actually Trivago.com. So the thing is that this time Trivago.com wants to access actually information from all the three platforms. Yes or no? Trivago.com wants to access information from all the three platforms. Yes or no? Yes, it is. So when Trivago.com wants to access information from all the three platforms, so definitely, don't you think that when we are using REST API, then we are actually overcoming a major problem? What major problem we are overcoming? Ultimately, everybody, the communication is here, yes. From the communication as any other application, can I say that ultimately I just have to take care about one thing, that I have to provide the information in the form of JSON object, and I will get the information back in the JSON format. Yes or no? I will provide the information in the JSON format, and I will get the information in the JSON format. Is that okay? Whatever be the underlying technical architecture of any other website, this is not my bloody headache. Yes or no? This is not my headache. So can I say this time actually JSON is working as a universal format, such that using the JSON two devices can communicate, or the two different applications can communicate, no matter whether they belong to the same technology or whether they belong to the different technology. Yes or no? So overall, let's say some application is already there. It is a B2C application. Using this B2 application, if I wanted to generate the JSON response, then it is very easy to generate the JSON response. I do not have to actually make any changes into the existing application. I can easily provide this functionality. Similarly, let's say that if I'm writing the application that is going to consume this information, then again, this is going to be very easy for me, because I have to actually just use the JSON parser. The JSON parser will automatically convert the JSON object into the Java or the Python or the PHP object. Once it is available in the Java, Python or the PHP object, now I am free. I can do anything. Yes or no? So JSON is actually a kind of bridge between the two applications, such that the applications can belong to the same technology, or the application can belong to different technologies. Yes or no? Is that clear, everyone? XML and JSON both are used for the same purpose. XML is nowadays not very popular. JSON is something you can consider. This is a kind of de facto standard. This is a kind of de facto standard. So for example, everybody, let's say that if I'm talking about the Paytm application, on the Paytm application, we can get billing detail from any vendor. Let's say if I'm talking about the electricity bill detail, if I'm talking about the water bill detail, if I'm talking about the gas bill detail, they are available on Paytm. So how they are available on the Paytm? They are available on the Paytm by means of web services. So Paytm is an application that is actually consuming data from thousands of websites via web services. Is that point okay? Paytm is actually taking data from thousands of websites via web services. The same thing is, you can say that kind of done by the Amazon.com. On the Amazon.com, many of the time you are finding that there is a page available, that is page from company, or you can say that page, product page by manufacturer. There a lot of information is available, and that information is directly provided by manufacturer. So what do you think? Amazon is going to give the access directly to the company, or Amazon will use REST API to get the information on its website? Definitely option number two. Definitely option number two. That's why for the last 6 to 10 years, especially the programmers who can create the REST API, they are actually very much in the demand, and they are getting immense, you can say that, amount of salaries also, once they are having experience of 3 to 5 years. You can also be one of them. Please stay to the Masai school and definitely build yourself. So this is an example available. You can say that Java application is there, .NET application is there, PHP application is there. All the applications are connected to one another with the help of web services. Web services are actually broadly divided into the two categories. Web services are broadly divided into the two categories. Nowadays, we are going to use only the second one, and the second one is going to be the RESTful web services. So if I'm talking about the types of web services, then there are two types of web services available. If I'm talking about the types of web services, then there are two types of web services available. The very first type of web services actually available, that is referred as the SOAP web service. SOAP actually refer to Simple Object Access Protocol. SOAP actually refer to Simple Object Access Protocol. This is the one thing that actually we are having available. Second type of service is also available. The second type of service is actually referred as the RESTful web service. And if I'm talking about what is the meaning of REST is, the meaning of REST is actually representational state transfer. This is actually referred as representational state transfer is what actually referred as the REST. So normally you have listened about the REST API, REST API. So REST actually stands for representational state transfer. So these are the two types of services available nowadays. If I'm talking about the popular one, then definitely popular one is REST, not SOAP. But this is one common interview question, that what is the difference between the SOAP and the RESTful web services? So differences are clearly written here. First of all, SOAP web service. SOAP actually stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. It is XML based approach for accessing web services. SOAP is W3C recommendation for communication between the two applications. SOAP is a XML based protocol. It is platform independent and language independent. By using SOAP, you will be able to interact with other programming language application. Same job SOAP is doing, same job JSON is doing. But let us take a look at disadvantages. SOAP uses XML format that must be parsed to be read. It defines many standards that must be followed while developing SOAP application. So it is slow and consume more bandwidth and resources. WSDL development. SOAP uses WSDL that doesn't have any mechanism to discover the services. RESTful web services. REST is a architecture. It is not a protocol. It is not a protocol. So one scholar is actually asking about WSDL. It is called Web Service Description Language. Don't worry, nobody is going to ask you. It is mainly when we are talking about parsing of the XML, then at the time what standard is to be followed. So if I'm talking about RESTful web services, then RESTful web services are definitely fast, language and platform independent definitely, then permit different data format. If I'm talking about permit different data format, then this is going to be plain text, this is going to be HTML, this is going to be XML, and this is going to be JSON. So these are the formats that are actually available here. So overall, everyone, you have to go for the REST services because SOAP is something that is very, very slow. This is something that is actually very, very slow. So this is one interview question. The interview question is that difference between REST and SOAP. And answer is already available from the notes. So I'm not going to write it again and again. But overall, everyone, what is the advantage of having the web service? Now it is clear, and how exactly we are finding applications that are actually displaying the data from multiple different websites. I hope now technically how this is possible, this is clear to you. Yes or no? Yes, it is. That's good. So now it's a good time to take a break. Today something additional. It's almost 8 minutes break for you. So welcome back after the break. And so we were talking about web services. Web services is all about actually providing communication among the machine to machine. Now listen, if I'm talking about communication among machine to machine, then definitely we have to take care about some more things here. First of all, everyone, HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Everybody is using that? Yes or no? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Is everybody using that? Answer is yes. Whenever we wanted to access any services on the internet, specifically on www, World Wide Web, then we have to use HTTP protocol. This time, actually, we are going to discuss about the HTTP protocol slightly into the detail. We are going to discuss about HTTP protocol slightly into the detail. So about the HTTP protocol, you can see everybody, HTTP, that is the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. The HTTP protocol is an application level protocol for collaborative distributed hypermedia information system. It is the data communication protocol that is used to establish communication between the client and the server. HTTP is a TCP IP based communication protocol, which is used to deliver the data like image file, query result, HTML file on the World Wide Web. The default port on the TCP is 80. It provides a standard way for computer to communicate with each other. First thing, first thing. When we are accessing the web services, when we are accessing the content from B2C application, then to access the content from B2C application, we are talking about simple HTTP protocol. Similarly, everybody, when we will talk about communication among the B2B applications, that is business to business applications, then to perform the communication between the B2B applications, again, the protocol that will be used is HTTP protocol. So overall, all our discussion will be on the HTTP protocol from today till the time we will talk about the Spring security. That is the last aspect. So HTTP is a TCP IP based protocol. If I'm talking about some of the basic characteristics of the HTTP protocol, it is a protocol that allows web server and browser to exchange data over the web. Yes. It is a request response protocol. Answer is yes. It uses reliable TCP connection by default on TCP port number 80. That's good. The line that is important is it is stateless. It is stateless means for each request is considered as the new request. In other words, server doesn't recognize the user by default. Well, by looking at this thing, I think you are not able to understand what is the mean of stateless is. Let me give you a very simple example. Let me give you a very simple example. The simple example is, let me consider, let's say that we are having a very popular tea stall. Let's say that we are having a very popular tea stall. If we have an extremely popular tea stall where actually let's say that thousands of customers are used to visit per day. In this condition, everyone, let's say that you are going to take tea on that tea stall on day number 1, then on day number 2, then 3 times on the day number 2. Let's say that 2 times in the day number 3, then 4 times in the day number 4. Day number 5, you didn't went. Day number 6, you go there again to take the tea. On the day number 7, let's say that you are asking owner of the tea stall that do you recognize me? So what answer can you expect? If you will ask the tea stall owner, where actually thousands of customers are used to visit per day basis. If you are going to ask, do you recognize me? Then definitely answer is going to be no. Answer is going to be no, because that person is actually not managing who is coming, who is going. He is actually having a standard way of system that actually you pay the money, take the token and give the token to the counter, then tea will be available to you. Give the token to the counter, then definitely key will be available to you. This is how exactly your system is going to work. So this time, no matter whether a single customer is coming for 10 times in a day or whether a customer is coming only for 1 time in the 10 days, the process is going to be same. There is no need to remember anything. There is no need to remember anything. And this is what same exactly the nature of the HTTP protocol is. For example, let's say whenever we are talking about internet or whenever we are talking about accessing the web services, then definitely we have to talk about the client and the server. If I'm talking about the client, then simply can I say one thing, that client is actually nothing but a person who is demanding the service. A client is an entity or a person or a machine who is demanding the service. Yes or no? Yes, it is. Similarly, if I'm talking about a server, then can I say that the person or the machine that is providing the services, it is referred as the server? Make sense? Hello class, wake up. Only 2 responses so far. Four to 5 responses so far. The person or the machine that is demanding the services, they are referred as the client, and the machine or the person who is providing the services, they are referred as the server. For the communication among the client and the server, we have to use the protocol. And this time, whenever we are talking about the web, Then on the web for the communication, we have to use the HTTP protocol. About the HTTP protocol, one thing is that the HTTP protocol is a stateless protocol. The HTTP protocol is a stateless protocol. What is the mean of being the stateless protocol is the client and the server are aware of each other. The client and server are aware of each other during the current request only. Afterwards, both of them forgot each other. Due to stateless nature of the protocol, neither the client nor the server can remain the information about the different request across the web page. So see, using the HTTP protocol using your laptop, let's say that you are hitting google.com for the first time. Then you are hitting google.com for the second time after 10 minutes. You are hitting google.com for the 20 times in the next 1 minute. Every time the google.com is going to treat you very much like a new person. Every time it is going to treat you very much like a new person. Getting my point? Why? Because we are using HTTP protocol. HTTP is a stateless protocol. Google says that I used to receive thousands or millions of requests per second. When I'm receiving millions of requests per second, then over the HTTP protocol, I will not be able to identify you. Is that point clear? So no matter whether you are visiting for the first time or no matter whether you are visiting for the 10,000 time, every time you will be treated as a new client. This is what actually the meaning of stateless is. Is that point okay? Because actually maintaining the state is a costly operation, and if you are going to perform any costly operation, then ultimately it is going to affect the performance. Is that point clear? Ultimately it is going to affect the performance. That's why actually HTTP is designed as a stateless protocol. Let me give you one more analogy. I hope that you all people have seen the movie that is Ghazni. It is available in I think some Tamil, Telugu also, as well as in the Hindi also, where Amir Khan actually played the role. He was hit by a rod and he used to forget everything. Did you remember that movie? So you can assume that he was also in a kind of stateless condition. Whether a person is visiting for him for the first time or the person is visiting for him for the 10th time, every time he is actually very much like, who are you? I don't know. Every time he is like, who are you? I don't know. So HTTP is a stateless protocol. How exactly login is maintained? How exactly Amazon is tracking us, what we wanted to purchase? That is a different concept. I will discuss to you. Don't worry. Then everyone, next thing is available that HTTP is called the connectionless protocol. So it is a connectionless approach in which HTTP client, i.e. a browser, initiate a HTTP request. And after the request is sent, client disconnect from the server and wait for the response. So can I say that actually communication is not going to be maintained during the entire interval? Request is sent, response is received, connection is closed, bye-bye. Yes or no? Request is sent, connection is closed, bye-bye. Response is received, connection is closed, bye-bye. So do not think that during the entire session, the connection will be maintained. You are sending a request, connection will be created. Once your request is submitted, connection is bye-bye. For the response, again, definitely there will be connection. Next thing is available, HTTP is media independent. So why we are actually calling HTTP as media independent? Simple logic. Using HTTP protocol, can you access an image on the internet? Using HTTP protocol, can you access an image on the internet? Yes, you can access. You can access, there is no problem. Those who are saying no directly, let's say that I'm going to images.google.com, and after going to images.google.com, for example, let's say that I'm talking about national flag of India. After writing the national flag of India, then definitely doing the right click, there is option available, open image in new tab. So can you see that I am able to access the image directly? I'm able to access the image directly. So you can access any image using the HTTP protocol. You can access. Okay. Similarly, everyone, let's say that I'm talking about the preamble of India in PDF. Let's say I'm talking about the preamble of India in the Hindi PDF. This is what exactly I'm writing. This time, everyone, can you see that I'm talking about accessing the simple PDF content? And when I'm talking about accessing the PDF content, then again, actually, I'm talking about the HTTP protocol. Yes or no? So I'm able to access images. I am able to access PDF file. I can access the Word file also. I can access a text file also. I can access the HTML, CSS also. I can access the audio also. I can access the video also. So by taking about this thing, can I say that HTTP protocol is not actually a media dependent protocol? It is actually a media independent protocol. Yes or no? It is actually a media independent protocol. So using the HTTP protocol, actually you can access a wide variety of media. That's why this is referred as the media independent protocol. So about the HTTP protocol, HTTP is media independent. HTTP is all about the connectionless protocol. HTTP is all about the stateless protocol. HTTP is all about the stateless protocol. So simple logic about the HTTP, simple. HTTP is used for communication on the web. What type of protocol it is? It is a request response protocol. On which port number it is running? It is running on the port number 80. What is the underlying protocol it is using? Underlying it is using TCP IP protocol. Underlying it is using TCP IP protocol. What is it media dependent? Answer is no. Is it connection oriented? Answer is no. It is connectionless. Is it stateful? Answer is no. It is actually a connection stateless protocol. So these pointers, can you remember into your mind? These pointers, can you remember into your mind? Because this is again something very commonly asked question. So about the HTTP, simple one, that is used for, you can say that communication over triple W. Then if I'm talking about is that stateful, then definitely answer is going to be false. Actually it is stateless. It is actually stateless. It is. Second thing I'm talking about, is it connection oriented? Then again you will say that no, this is connection oriented. This is actually not a connection oriented. This is actually a connectionless. This is actually a connectionless. Similarly, everyone, we are talking about is that media independent? Then answer is yes, it is media independent protocol. It is media independent protocol. It is, the answer is going to be true. Yes, it is going to be true. Thereafter, everyone, I'm talking about the next pointer. Simple, if I'm talking about its default port number, then definitely default port number, you are going to say this is going to be 80 number port. Similarly, if I'm talking about the underlying protocol that it's actually it is using, then the underlying protocol that it is going to use is going to be TCP, that is referred as the transmission control protocol. That is referred as the transmission control protocol. If you wanted to find out more information about the HTTP protocol, that will be definitely beneficial for you to read. Then actually for the HTTP protocol, directly you can study from the official documentation, and the official documentation about the HTTP protocol is directly available on, just a minute, HTTP protocol official doc. Yeah, this one on the W3 website into the RFC. This is perfectly available for us. Let me put the link here. This is the standard documentation here. CIETF document. Just a minute. RFC editor, HTTP semantic, abstract is there, status of the memo, copyright, introduction, history and evolution, core semantics. So we are talking about the RFC, and we are having version 1.1. Let me actually scroll down slightly. Error handling, protect version, types of resources, messages, user agent, intermediate, caches, example, identifier, URI, references. Just a second. These are the obsoletes. This is the updated RFC. This is the updated RFC, and this is all about introduction, providing registry, discourage multiple. The primary source of internet message header is structure of this document, documentation terminology. No. Just a minute. HTTP protocol official RFC. RFC is for request for comment. RFC is for request for comment. Yeah, this one. I'm providing the link here also. For more details about the protocol, you can read this. See, RFCs are, you can say that, father of all documents in the terms of protocol. They are father of all documents in the terms of protocol. IETF. If I'm talking about this IETF, then IETF is an organization whose full form is Internet Engineering Task Force. The full form is Internet Engineering Task Force is the full form of this organization. This is actually, you can say that, one of the body of W3C that is responsible for regulation of all the protocols. Any protocol that will be available on the internet, definitely it will be approved by IETF. and IETF is used to release the standard documentation of that protocol. From this document, other documents are derived, other websites are actually taking the information. That's why I used to call it that this is father of all the documents. Here actually abstract is available, then you can say that complete terminology is available, and it is actually 41, or actually it is some 64, and actually it is some more than possibly 200 pages, actually 100 pages, more than 176 pages, 175 pages document it is. No need to read each and everything. Definitely initial, what is the purpose, what is actually the format, what are the methods available, what is the mean of request is, what is the mean of responses, what are the resources, etc. These are the few terms that actually you can read from here. This will definitely be a big help for you. This will actually going to be a big help for you if you are going to study from them. Lot of documentation is there, header format, etc, etc. So well, as of now I am closing this document. So more information about the HTTP is available here. Just a second, let me open the document again. It will be actually useful for us. HTTP request as defined in the section number 5. Just a minute, because I'm going to discuss to you about HTTP request and HTTP response. I'm going to discuss to you about the HTTP request and HTTP response. This is available on somewhat page number 31, but let me directly jump on HTTP message. Just a minute, HTTP message. Can you see that two types of messages are there? One type of message is actually request, and second type of is called response message. The first type of response is called HTTP request message. Second is called HTTP response message. Section number 5 is actually talking about the HTTP request message. But before this, see, whenever I am talking about the HTTP message, the HTTP message consists of request from client to server and response from server to client. Request and response messages uses generic format of RFC 822 for transferring the entities. Both type of messages actually consist of start line, 0 or more header, and empty line indicating the end of the header field, and possibly a message body. So when I'm talking about the HTTP request and response message, then into the HTTP request and response message, common thing is there that both type of messages consist of a start line. Consist of a start line. After the start line, they are having 0 or more field headers. After the 0 or more field headers, then there is an empty line available, such that the empty line actually indicates the end of the header field, and possibly it can actually have message body also. Possibly it can have a message body also. So these are the few informations that actually we are having available here. So by looking at this thing, can I say that message body is optional? By looking at this thing, can I say that message body is optional? Yes or no? Message body is optional. In case of 3 request, it is not available, that I will discuss to you. Okay. In the, you can say that interest of the robustness, server should never actually ignore any empty line received from the request line is expected. In other words, if the server is reading the protocol stream at the beginning of the message and receive the CRLF first, it should ignore the CRLF. Coming to next part, the next part is actually referred as the message header. HTTP header field include general header, request header, response header, entity header fields. Follow the same genetic format as given in the section 3.1. Each header actually consists of name and a colon, then the field value. Field names are case insensitive. The field may be preceded by any amount of LWS through a single SP is preferred. SP means service provider. Header field can be extended over multiple line by preceding each extra line with at least one separator or HT. So, well, what is the format of header is simple. About the header. So see, each header field consists of name followed by colon and the field value. Header field can actually span for multiple lines, and application ought to follow common form where one is known for indicated one generating thing. Okay. So this is the second important line about the HTTP protocol. See, everything I am directly taking from the official documentation. Thereafter, beyond the common forms, message, field name, colon body, field name equal to token. The field name does not include any leading trading character. This is not important. This is not important. The order of the order in which field with different fields names are received is not significant. So you can write down in any order. You can write down in any order. No problem, no problem, no problem. But there is a sequence available. Just a minute. Third thing is available. Third thing is available, that is called message body. Third part is called message body. First of all, if we are talking about the message body, then definitely you can see that the message body, if any, of an HTTP message is used to carry the entity body associated with the request or response. The message body differs from entity body only from transfer encoding has been applied. Well, this is not important. This is not important, but this line is actually sufficient for us what exactly the message body actually contained. What exactly message body contain. The rule of the message body is aligned to differ from request and response. The presence of message body in a request is signaled by the inclusion of content length or transfer encoding header field in the request method body. A message body must not be included in a request if the specification of the request body does not allow sending utility body. A server should read and forward the message body on any request if the request method does not include defining semantic. I think you people will get shortly bored if I'm going to read too much in this content, but I think that is sufficient. I think that is sufficient. No need to unnecessarily include so much theory. But overall, everyone, whenever in future, not in the Masai school, in future in the company, if you are getting stuck anywhere, then at that time, if you are unable to spot out where exactly my error is, then in this condition, ultimately may be possible that you will find your solution in such documents. Getting? Because when you are actually communicating with 30 different APIs, and at the time of 30 different API, let's say that 28 APIs are working and one API is not working, or two APIs are not working, then definitely you cannot blame your code. Yes or no? In this condition, you cannot blame your code. You might found some error into the service provider API. So in this condition, actually you have to read the proper HTTP protocol. And after reading the HTTP protocol, then you have to diagnose what exactly the root cause of the error is. What exactly the root cause of the error is. Well, so a lot of documentation is available. General header is there, request header is there. What is the mean of request line is there. Now the good thing is that good thing is there, that is important. Now I'm going to discuss about the HTTP request methods. The important thing is all about HTTP request methods. So if I'm talking about the HTTP request methods, the method token actually indicate the method to be performed on the resource identified by the request URI. The method name is case insensitive. So method names are available. Most popular is get, second is post, third is put, fourth is delete. Apart from this, head is also available, trace is also available, connect is also available, and options is also available. Apart from these requests, one more request is available, that is called the patch request. Apart from these methods, one more request is available, that is actually called the patch method. Let me jump to section number 9.3. Let me jump to section number 9.3. So if I'm talking about the section number 9.3, into the section number 9.3, we are talking about the get request. So get is actually available at multiple times. Section number 9.3, get request. First line, please take a look. The get method means retrieve whatever information is identified by request URI. If the request URI refer to data producing process, it is the produced data which shall be written as an entity in the response, not the source of text of the process. Just actually focus on the first line, and just by focusing on the first line, can I say that the get method is actually used to read the data? Yes or no? Whenever I'm talking about fetching the information from the server, then to fetch the information from the server, I have to talk about the get request. Is that point okay? Line is copied from official documentation in front of you. Talking about some more part. The semantic of get method changed to a conditional get if the request method include a if match, if none match, if range header. A conditional get method requests that entity to transfer only under the circumstances that are described. The circumsemantic of the get is going to be partial get. This is also not important. The response of the get request is cacheable if and only if it meets the requirement of HTTP caching in the section number 13. This is not important. This is not important. Okay. One thing that actually you should always keep into mind. Whenever you are using the get request, then the message that you are sending using the get request, it cannot contain body. Getting my point? If I'm talking about the get request message, then the get request message cannot contain body. So simple point that I'm writing is the point is going to be that the get request message does not have body. It does not have, but response can have. But get response can have. But get response can have. Thereafter, the next type of request is available that is actually head request. And if I'm talking about the head request, then you can see that the head request is identical to get, except that server must not return a message body in the response. The meta information contained in the HTTP header in response to head request should be identical to information sent in the get request. This method can be used to get the meta information about the entity implied by the request without transferring the antibody itself. This method is often used for testing. Yeah, this line is important. This line is important. See, in the interview, sometime this question is asked. What is the difference between the get method and the head method is? What is the difference between the get method and the head method is? So you can see that get method is actually used to retrieve the resources. But if I'm talking about the head method, then head method is only used to check for the modification. It will actually use for checking the validity, but it is not useful for retrieving the information from the servers. The response caching, etc. This is not actually important for us. Then talking about the next request is going to be the post request. The post method is used to request that the origin server accept the entity enclosed in the request as a new subordinate of the resource identified by the request URI in the request line. So just actually read this description very carefully. Just read this description very carefully. The post method is used to request that the origin server accept the entity enclosed in the request as a new subordinate of the resource identified by the request URI. First point, by looking at this line, that the origin server accept the entity enclosed in the request. So can I say that whenever I am going to send the post request, then with the post request, I can attach the method body? Yes or no? With the post request, I can attach a method body. Think over it. In case of get request, I told you that there cannot be a method body. But in case of post request, I am telling you that yes, there can be method body available. Means actually we can transfer the information using the method body also. Post is designed to allow a uniform method to cover the following functions: annotation of existing resource, posting a message to bulletin board, providing a block of data, etc. The actual function performed by the post data is determined by the server and usually depending on the request URI. The posted entity is subordinate to the URL in the same way as file is subordinate of directory containing in it. A news article is subordinate to the news group to which it is posted. A record is subordinate to the database. The action performed by the post method might not result in a resource that can be actually identified by the URI. In this case, either 200 or 204 is the appropriate response status, depending on whether or not the response includes the entity that describes the result. So this line is also good about the post request. Something you should keep into mind that whenever we wanted to create a resource on the server, then to create a resource on the server, we have to talk about the post request. we have to create the post request. See, if a resource has been created on the origin server, the response should be 201 and contain the entity which describe the status of the request and refer to a new resource and the location header. This header information is useful. This header information is useful. If resource has been created on the original server, then definitely it is going to be 201. One more pointer is the action performed by the post method might not result in a resource that can be identified by the URI. In this case, either 200 or 204 is the appropriate response status. Okay, how many of you are aware about the HTTP status code? How many of you are aware about the HTTP status code? Very few people. Very few people. Okay, okay. So delete mapping is important. I will cover actually delete and the put mapping only. Rest of the things you can actually cover it there yourself. The delete method requests that the origin server delete the resource identified by the request URI. This method may be overridden by human intervention to the original server. The client cannot be guaranteed that operation has been carried out, even if the status code written from the origin server indicate that action has been completed successfully. However, the server should not indicate success unless at the time the response is given, it intended to delete the resource or move it to an inaccessible location. A successful response should be 200 if the response include an entity describing the status, 202 if the action has not yet been enacted, or 204 if there is no content, if the action has been enacted but the response does not include the entity. Okay. Returning these status code is crucial when you are going to develop an API. Yeah. If the request passes through cache and the request URI identify one or more concurrent cache entities, these entities should be treated as stale. Response to this method is not cacheable. Response to this method is not cacheable. One more thing that you should keep into mind, like get mapping cannot have any request body. Like the get method does not have any request body. Similarly, if I'm talking about the delete request body, then the delete request message cannot have method body in itself. The delete request message does not have any body in itself also. This is one more thing that you should take care. The trace method is used to revoke a remote application layer loopback of the request. The final recipient of the request should reflect the message received back. Trace is just used for checking whether your connection is properly working or not. Trace is just used for checking whether your request is properly working or not. Then everyone, one more method is available. And this last method is actually referred as the put method. The put method requests that the enclosed entity to be stored under the supplied request URI. If the request URI refer to a already existing resource, the enclosed entity should be considered as a modified version of the one residing in the original server. So can I say that put request is used for updation? Take a look at the line. The put method requests that the enclosed entity to be stored under the supplied request URI. If the request URI refer to an already existing resource, the enclosed entity should be considered as modified version of one residing in the original server. So by looking at this line, can I say that put request is used for modification? Yes or no? Yes, it is. If the URI does not point to the existing resource, then the URI is capable of being defined as a new resource for the requesting user. The original server can create the new resource on it. So simple logic. Can I say that put request is used to perform the upsert operation? The put request is used to perform the upsert operation. What is the meaning of upsert operation is? Upsert operation is actually insert plus update operation. Take a look at the chat, please. Take a look at the chat, please. It is upsert operation. Upsert operation actually says a very simple thing. If the resource is available, update that. If the resource is not available, create that. If the resource is not available, create that. If resource is available, update that. This is what actually you have to take care. But the main thing is all about the status code that it is going to return. So you can see that if a new resource is created, then the origin server must inform the user agent via the status code 201. If the existing resource is modified, then it should return either 200 or 204 response code should be sent to indicate successful completion of the request. If the resource could neither be created nor be modified, then appropriate order should be given to reflect the nature of the problem. The recipient of the entity must not ignore any content header that it does not understand or implement. It must return a 50 response in such cases. So overall, everyone, lot of things are there, but the main thing that if I'm talking about the discuss, so this is what portion actually this is useful for us about the put request. I will adjust the content accordingly. If the request passes through cache, this is not important. The fundamental difference between the post and the put request is reflected in the different meaning of the request URI. The URI in the post request identify the resource that will handle the enclosed entity. The resource might be a data processing accepting process, a gateway to some other protocol, a separate entity that accept annotation. In contrast, a URI in a put request identify the entity close with the request. The user agent know that URI is intended and the server must not attempt to apply the request to some other resource. If the server does desire, then go for the different AI. Okay, 301, a simple way, simple you can understand. Post is all about the creation request. Put is all about the updation request. This is the only difference that you should keep into your mind. It does not define the put method unless a specified particular header well. This is not important. I think if you go through this part only, then it will be actually very much okay for you. It will be very much okay for you. If a new resource is created, modified, either 200 should be sent to indicate the success. If the resource could not be created, then appropriate error response should be sent. I think that is sufficient. I think that is sufficient. About the protocol, so put request is done, delete request is done. Connect is not important. Status code definition. Yeah, status code definition. This is again something that is actually vital for you. Not so much discussion I am going to take. Not so much discussion I am going to take. First of all, everyone, can you say that informational is going to be started from 100 and it is going to be up to 199? Yes or no? If I'm talking about status code from 100 to 199, the status code from 100 to 199 will fall under the category of informational. What is the mean of informational is your request is actually still under kind of process. Your request is still actually under a kind of process. If your request is successful, then can you see that your request will be available in the range of 200 to 299? Yes or no? Please check. And 200 in case of get means resources sent as a response. 200 in case of post means actually the entity describing or containing the result of the action. 201 is for the created. Thereafter 202 is available for accepted. 203 is for non-assertive. 204 is for the non-content. 205 reset content. 206 partial content is available here. Then everyone 300 related code. This is for redirection. 300 related. This is for redirection. 301 move permanently. 302 not found. Thereafter, if I'm talking about the status code that is in the range of 400, have you ever encountered 404 multiple times? Yes or no? Error code 404. So 404 is a status code that actually shows that the not found. 403 indicates forbidden. 402 actually payment required. So simple logic. If I'm talking about the any status code that is available in the range of 200, so can I say that it is all about a successful response? Any status code that is in the range of 200, can I say that this is a successful status code? Yes or no? Any status code that is in the range of 200, you can simply call it as a kind of successful status code. Any status code that is available in the range of 400, can I say this is related to document error? It may be invalid URL, it may be insufficient permission, it may be no authorization. Means this is not a server error, but this error is due to some document related issue. This is due to document related issue. Similarly, everyone, after the 400, there is one more relation available. The 400 is actually referred to the client error. The 400 is actually referred as the client error. Thereafter, one more is available, and the one more kind is actually referred as the 500. And if I'm talking about the range of the 500, then actually it indicates the server error. Is that okay? The 500 is indicating the server error. So see everyone, if I'm talking about the methods, so simple question I am asking, HTTP methods, they are defined by Java or they are defined by HTTP protocol? HTTP methods, they are defined by Java or they are defined by HTTP protocol? Hurry up, please answer. Definitely they are defined by protocol. Similarly, if I'm talking about the status code, they are defined by Java or they are defined by protocol? Definitely they are defined by protocol. So can I say one thing, that one application or one REST service that I have created using Java programming, ultimately it is giving you response in the form of JSON. Whether it is successful or unsuccessful, the information will be provided in the form of HTTP response code. So can I say, no matter whether I am developing my application using Python, I am developing my application using .NET, or I am developing my application using Java programming, because ultimately we are going to deal with JSON and the HTTP protocol. So underlying technology does not play any role practically. Yes or no? The underlying technology is practically not going to play any role, because if I'm creating the REST API using Java, if you are creating the REST API using Python, it doesn't make any difference for the third party who is going to use our application. Why? Because the way of communicating is either JSON or the HTTP, or using both. I will communicate with the servers. So because I am providing my service using HTTP plus JSON, I am accepting the services using HTTP plus JSON, and HTTP and JSON, their specification are created by Internet Engineering Task Force. So can I say a simple thing, that I am completely designing an API that is independent of a specific technology? Yes or no? I'm going to design an API that is completely independent to any specific technology. Is that point okay? So this is how actually RESTful services are created, and that's why RESTful services are getting so much popularity. How to create the RESTful services? This is a different thing. We will discuss about this possibly from tomorrow. Actually we will discuss about that thing. But everyone, now actually from this documentation, how important official documentations are, I hope this thing is clear to you. They are very long. You are not going to study each and every line, but sometime actually, let's say that you are getting confused. What is the difference between status code 200, 201 and 204? Now can you answer? 200 means successful, 201 means created, 204 means actually no response is available. 204 means no response is available. What is the difference between the get method and the head method? Is get method is actually used to retrieve some resource, but head method is just used to actually, you can say that, check for a request or validity of a request, nothing else. Trace, what is the use of trace? Is trace is actually used to, you can say that, just check whether your connections etc are practically working or not. This is something actually you should use. So that's why the official documentation are there. This specification was available in June 1999. Very old. Might be many of you were not on this planet at that time. So, well, everyone, I think one part I have done. Caching etc is a different thing. Expiration model, validation based model is not you have to study. Response caching is not side effect. Header field definition. This is something you may use in future, particularly authorization. Cache control, when we will talk about the Redis cache, not in your module. Then date clockwise origin. Well, everyone, I think that is sufficient for the day. Remaining pointers, what exactly we are having to study. So regarding the HTTP protocol, I have already covered sufficient information. What is the format of request is, what is the format of responses, all that information I have already taken from the official documentation. These formats are there that actually you can study. What is the format of HTTP request is, what is the format of HTTP responses, already discussed to you. Tomorrow we are going to start from the Spring Boot. You are requested to please go through the notes before coming to class, because now I'm going to be moved slightly into the speedy manner. Okay, everyone, because due to leap session, normally our session is getting, you can say that, lagged. So leap session is important, but we have to slightly speed up. Okay, please go to the LMS platform and fill the feedback. This document will be shared to you. Once you have done with filling the feedback form, then you are requested to write done on the chat, and then you can leave the meeting. This content I'm going to upload for you shortly, and apart from the coding examples 16, 17, 18, they will also be uploaded. Let me turn off the recording.